Monetizing a video game can be tricky and can have a huge impact on the success of the game. To help ensure that the game is successful and enjoyable for players, it is important to avoid certain monetization strategies. First and foremost, it is important to avoid overly aggressive monetization strategies that are designed to encourage players to spend more money than they would naturally. Strategies like pay-to-win mechanics, which give players with more money an unfair advantage over other players, should be avoided. Similarly, freemium games should be structured in a way that does not make it difficult for players to progress without paying. It is also important to think carefully about how microtransactions are implemented. Microtransactions should be optional and offer players items that are purely cosmetic or provide quality of life improvements, such as additional storage space. Microtransactions should never be a requirement for players to advance in the game or be able to compete with other players. In addition, it is important to ensure that the game is not too dependent on monetization. Too much monetization can be off-putting for players, who may be more inclined to play the game for free. Monetization should be an additional element of the game, but not its main focus. Finally, it is important to ensure that the game is fun for all players, regardless of whether or not they choose to pay. This means making sure that players who don't pay still have access to a satisfactory gaming experience. The game should provide enough content and features that all players can enjoy playing the game and continue to engage with it. Furthermore, it is important to make sure that players have a variety of ways to spend their money. Players should be able to purchase items that fit their playstyle and are useful to them. If players feel like they are being forced into purchasing items they do not want or need, they may be more likely to abandon the game. Additionally, it is important to provide players with enough rewards and incentives to encourage them to spend. Rewards can include exclusive items, discounts, special in-game events, and more. Lastly, it is important to provide clear communication about the game's monetization structure. Players should be aware of any costs associated with the game and how their money is being used. If players are presented with unclear or misleading information, they may be less likely to trust the game and buy items. By avoiding over-aggressive monetization strategies, providing players with rewards and incentives, and being transparent about costs, developers can effectively monetize their video games without alienating players. To summarize, monetizing a video game can be a delicate process. When done right, it can provide developers with an additional source of revenue while allowing players to be rewarded for their dedication and loyalty. However, it is important to make sure the game is balanced, fun, and rewarding for all players. Developers should avoid overly aggressive monetization strategies and provide players with rewards and incentives to encourage spending. Finally, they should be transparent about the game's monetization so that players will trust the game and its developers. By following these tips, developers can successfully monetize their video games without sacrificing the game's integrity or alienating players. In addition to monetization strategies, developers should also think carefully about any updates or changes they make to the game. Players often become attached to certain aspects of the game, such as characters or settings, and any changes to these aspects can have a profound effect on their experience. Developers should take time to consider the reactions of their fans and make sure their updates do not adversely affect the gameplay or fun. Developers should also consider how updates will affect the game's balance and mechanics. Any drastic changes can throw off the game's balance and create frustration among players. It is important to test new mechanics and updates thoroughly to make sure they are balanced and enjoyable. Finally, updates and changes should be regularly communicated to players. This will allow them to understand the motivations behind the changes and give them a sense of involvement in the game's development. Overall, developing and monetizing a video game is no easy task. It requires careful planning and consideration of a myriad of factors, from monetization strategies to balancing the game's mechanics. Developers should approach their project with an open mind and be willing to adjust their plans based on feedback from players. They should prioritize fun and fairness above all else and communicate updates clearly with their players. With the right strategy, developers can create a successful game that is both profitable and enjoyable. Of course, creating a successful game also requires marketing. Developing a good marketing strategy is crucial to reaching potential players. Developers should focus on building a good relationship with their players, creating a unique and engaging brand, and optimizing their website, social media accounts, and advertising campaigns. They should also use analytics to measure the success of their marketing efforts and make adjustments as needed. With a solid marketing plan in place, developers can reach their desired audience and increase the success of their game. It is also important to consider post-launch support for a game. Developers should focus on bug fixes, content updates, balancing changes, and customer support. It is also important to consider additional monetization strategies, such as in-game purchases, subscriptions, or special offers. By focusing on post-launch support and continuing to optimize their game, developers can keep their players engaged and ensure that their game remains profitable in the long term. Creating a successful game requires a lot of work and dedication. Developers need to focus on the creative aspects of game design and development, such as creating engaging and intuitive gameplay, developing a compelling story, and creating immersive visuals and sound effects. Additionally, they need to pay close attention to the technical aspects of game development, such as coding, debugging, and optimizing. Finally, they need to create a good marketing strategy to reach potential players and ensure their game remains successful after launch. With dedication and the right strategy, developers can create a successful game that stands out from the crowd. Once a game is launched, developers should focus on post-launch support. This includes bug fixes, content updates, and balancing changes. Additionally, they should focus on customer support to ensure players have a good experience playing their game. Developers should also consider additional monetization strategies such as in-app purchases, subscriptions, or special offers to help ensure their game remains profitable. By doing all of these things, developers can ensure their game is successful and remains popular for a long time.